Up next, the police chief responds to those who say he needs a new boss.
There are going to be some big changes in the way one city does its budget business, and a Scotia woman talks about her rescue from the banks of the Mohawk River.
Live at 11, up next.
We will hear from the White House on the rising price of gas in this country. And if you think you're stuck in traffic longer every day, you're not alone.
Also, the state is stepping in to take a look at the books in an area city. Great Barrington is making a decision tonight about horse racing. We'll have it as Live at 11 starts right now.
Now, the Capital Region's #1 late news, News Channel 13, Live at 11.
Tonight's top story, a call for change. If some city council members get their way, there will be a new person in charge of a local police department.
This is News Channel 13, Live at 11.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Lydia Kulbida.
And I'm Ed Dague. The Schenectady police chief could find himself with a new boss if some members of the city council get their way. Kelly Lynch was at City Hall tonight when those council members suggested the city needs a police commissioner. Kelly joins us live with more. Kelly.
And this move comes about 2 months after the city council passed a vote of no confidence in police chief Greg Kaczmarek. Now there's a move underway to bring in a police commissioner to supervise the department.
We have severe problems, and we need to address them.
City Council member David Bouck says problems in the police department leadership have gotten out of hand. He, along with Council member Joe Allen, are calling for a police commissioner to come in and oversee the department, including Police Chief Greg Kaczmarek.
I'm not here trying to beat down Greg Kaczmarek. That's not the issue. The issue is a lack of trust, and it's extremely hard to trust this individual now or in the future.
Kaczmarek admits he lied to the council 2 years ago about a federal investigation in his department. This isn't the first time Schenectady has brought in a police commissioner. About 10 years ago, the council hired Commissioner Charlie Mills when leadership problems escalated. But former Mayor Karen Johnson sided with the council and worked with them to hire Mills. In this case, Mayor Al Drzezinski isn't quite convinced a police commissioner is the answer.
It's not the council's role to hire. It's solely within the purview of the mayor. They can present a plan to me. I'll always be open-minded enough to look at it, but they'd better have a good reason for submitting the plan if they expect me to buy into it.
The person this would most directly affect is Chief Kaczmarek, who doesn't like the idea of bringing in someone above him.
I don't think we need one. I think the FBI investigation will completely vindicate my tenure as chief and the command that I've had here. If the day comes that there is a police commissioner, maybe you should ask the former commissioner how I'd work with one.
What would your...
That's all I want to say.
Would you work well with him?
That's all I want to say.
Council members Bouck and Allen brought up the issue to see if the rest of the council would support it. They do. They'll address the issue again in about 2 weeks. Ed and Lydia.
As I recall from what the chief was saying, in fact, Charles Mills left Schenectady fairly quickly and went to Troy, served in the same post.
I asked him to elaborate on it. As you heard, he had nothing more to say on that subject.
That may be all that needs to be said. Kelly Lynch, live at City Hall. Thank you. Lydia.
A Scotia woman has quite a tale to tell after almost ending up in the Mohawk River.
She told her story to Antoinette Biordi tonight. That's coming up right after Bob Kovachick brings us a first look at probably a hot and dry forecast.
Yeah, it looks great. Certainly another very pleasant May night in progress. Temperatures settling back through the 50s and eventually down to the 40s, roughly low to mid 40s tomorrow morning. Lots of sunshine. Nothing more than some high scattered clouds, but generally another fine day. And very dry, very low relative humidity values. Temperatures reaching the low 70s tomorrow afternoon. Back with more on the forecast for the rest of the week shortly. Lydia.
Thank you, Bob. A 71-year-old Scotia woman survived a harrowing ordeal over the weekend. She was on her way to church when she nearly ended up in the Mohawk River. Antoinette Biordi spoke to the woman tonight, and Antoinette is live in her newsroom now with more. Antoinette?
Lydia, 71-year-old Jane Conroy knows she's lucky to be alive after her car went airborne down a 60-foot embankment and into the Mohawk River. She says she doesn't even remember the accident because she blacked out. Tonight, she just wants to thank all the people that helped save her.
I was very, very lucky. Very, very lucky.
Jane Conroy doesn't have any scrapes or bruises. In fact, she doesn't even remember how she ended up at the bottom of this embankment with her car halfway in the Mohawk River.
Went up and over all those tree stumps.
Jane says she was on her way to church Sunday morning when she blacked out. She wears this bracelet to show she has diabetes. That day, her blood sugar level had dropped quickly, and the next thing she knew, she was being carried away in a stretcher.
Well, luckily, I didn't get hurt. Very lucky, and I didn't hurt anybody else, better yet. It's happened to me before, but, you know, not, luckily, most times I wasn't driving. So, it's just one of those things. I just have to be more careful.
Scotia firefighters say this dead tree limb was the only thing keeping her car from completely sinking. She was in her car for nearly an hour before Dan and Linda Heaney, who live nearby, discovered her and called 911.
I just hope that she's doing well now.
Fire crews say if more time had passed, her entire car would have been underwater. But now that she's alive to talk about what happened, she has a few words to say to her rescuers.
I would like to thank them all very much from the bottom of my heart. They were wonderful.
Now, Jane says she does take insulin for her diabetic condition and says she'll keep an even closer eye on her blood sugar levels so something like this doesn't happen again. Lydia?
She's lucky Linda and Dan found her so quickly. There was that elderly woman in Florida who spent, I think, like 5 days in her car in the swamp.
For sure, definitely.
Antoinette Biordi live in the newsroom this evening. Thank you. Ed?
Albany police say a Saratoga County woman left her 5-year-old son alone in a pickup truck for 5 hours while she was drinking on Lark Street. 31-year-old Elaine Ladeau of Ballston Spa picked up early Sunday morning, charged with endangering the welfare of her child. As police tell the story, Ladeau's truck was parked on Hamilton Street while she was around at the corner at a bar. Her son was found wandering on Lark Street at about 4:30 in the morning.
It's a potentially dangerous situation. You know, even at that late night period, there's still a lot of pedestrian traffic through there. There's a lot of vehicles driving up and down Lark Street, heavily traveled road. A child easily could have wandered into the road, been struck by a vehicle. You know, there's endless possibilities that could have endangered his safety.
Police say Ladeau's son actually stayed in the truck for most of the 5 hours, only wandered away after he heard fire trucks in the area and became worried about his mom.
A 5-person review board is now going to oversee every major budget decision in the city of Pittsfield. The board was created by an agreement between the mayor, the city council president, and the State Department of Revenue. Pittsfield is anticipating a budget deficit of nearly $7 million when the fiscal year ends in June. Even with an 8.5% tax hike, they still expect to have a multi-million-dollar deficit next year. If city leaders do not do what the oversight board tells them to do, the state may step in and take control of city finances. Berkshire Bureau Chief Josh Einiger will have more on this story tomorrow. You can also read more in tomorrow's Berkshire Eagle. There will be no simulcasting at the Great Barrington Fairgrounds, at least not in the near future. Residents voted down the idea at a town meeting tonight. The racetrack at the fairgrounds has been closed for several years. The owner was hoping to allow betting on horse races simulcast from other tracks. Residents rejected the idea this evening.
You may have noticed the price of gasoline going up, but have you noticed by how much the national average has gone up nearly 9 cents in just the last 2 weeks? The Bush administration is expected to announce a new energy strategy later this month, but we learned today that strategy will not contain any short-term solutions.
I'm going to focus on what Washington always focuses on, which is political solutions to get you through the night. He's going to focus on long-term solutions to get the American people through both the night and the day.
The critics complain that the administration is too focused on increasing oil supplies, not focused enough, not spending near enough time talking about conservation.
A new report tells us that Americans are wasting a lot of that gas by sitting in traffic, going nowhere fast. As Jim Hanchett tells us, the average driver now spends 36 hours a year stuck in traffic.
What we're going to show you is just how far the backup extends here.
This morning's rush hour in Los Angeles, an exercise in frustration, an example of worsening congestion in dozens of cities that a new report concludes is making getting to work a job. Researchers at the Texas Transportation Institute say the average motorist now spends 36 hours a year stuck in traffic. That's 2 more hours than just 2 years ago. And it's expensive. The exhaust, the exhaustion, adds up to $78 billion a year. The study's authors say construction of new housing, new factories, new suburbs is outpacing construction of new means of transportation. Mass transit advocates say the Texas report underlines the need for commuting options.
Rush hour is much more painful when you don't have a choice. In some regions, a quarter of the people are using other means to get to work, and so they don't care about the rush hour no matter how bad it is.
Keenitz says opening new highways doesn't change congestion levels. It's better to spend the money on new subways. But a construction industry group says roads can help.
There's been insufficient investment over the last several decades in adding capacity to the entire system. That's the real crisis at hand.
Want to escape congestion right now? Well, head to Corpus Christi, Texas. This is a city where the researchers say the open road still is. Corpus Christi is among the nation's least congested major cities. So you want to spend some quality time with your car radio while stuck in traffic? Well, head to Los Angeles or join us here in Washington. Jim Hanchett, NBC News, Washington.
As Jim said, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle topped the list for the worst traffic congestion. Washington, D.C. was next. Boston was the only northeastern city to make the top 10.
Yeah, but I don't think Jim's necessarily right about the car radio in Los Angeles because there were more power problems in California tonight. The station might be off the air. We'll tell you about that in our next segment.
We'll also tell you about the great train robber who's back behind bars after more than 3 decades on the run. At 11:13, we'll tell you what was behind a big protest in Albany today. Then at 11:28, we'll take you to Troy, where construction on a new minor league baseball stadium is underway.
Live, local, late breaking with Ed Dague and Lydia Kulbida. This is News Channel 13, live at 11. News Channel 13 is sponsored in part by Chrysler Plymouth and by ExxonMobil.